So our lead this hour from the coaching carousel, round and 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 round it goes. So we have a new name, which is an old name, which was an inevitable name to end up on the coaching carousel. Say what? So if you weren't paying attention, because there's other stuff maybe more important than this, I get it, but we have learned that Tom Brady has reached out about a possible reunion, get the band back together with his former coach, Bill Belichick, and hanging out in Sin City. Yeah, the Raiders. Now, multiple NFL, not just the Raiders, but multiple NFL teams have knocked on the door, and they've played ding-dong ditch with Bill Belichick to say, would you think about not even coaching a game at North Carolina, even though you agreed to go to Chapel Hill and you're pretending like you're the coach of the Tar Heels? Would you just forget about that nonsense? It's fugazi and go over to the NFL because you're really an NFL coach. And so it's the Raiders and supposedly some other teams as well. So let us discuss the question. Let's focus in on the Tom Brady part of the story because that's a nice, juicy part of the story. I think we can agree on that. So Tom Brady has reached out to Bill Belichick about coaching the Raiders. Do you think that conversation went well? How do you think that whole conversation went? So I've got double-tongued, napkin holder, and jar of pickles. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make a rough diamond is what we're going to make. So, depending on what side of the bed that Belichick gets out of, which side, then that will determine how the conversation went. Now, as we know, it's always complicated because Belichick is a chameleon. He's double-tongued, Bill Belichick. You had the Patriots version when he was coaching there where everyone was persona non grata. He had a lot of grunts. There were death stares. There was the sigh, and then there would be silence when he was asked a question. I'm pretty sure that that's not how Belichick acted around Tom Brady. Right? The force field was down. The defense mechanism was not activated. And so Tom Brady got the rah-rah TV version of Bill Belichick where he plays grab ass with Peyton Manning and also Pat McAfee. And that's how that went during the courtesy call. Now, Bill, likely attempting to be human, the forced smile, right, the awkward joke. But the Raiders are not an ideal gig. They're not, right? They're far from the I-95 corridor. And even though he's at North Carolina, which is not in his preferred northeastern part of the I-95 corridor, if you're Belichick, it's still geographically more desirable. Plus, the Raiders don't have a quarterback. They have a cheap owner. And that said, though, beggars can't be choosers. I heard that somewhere along the road of life, that beggars cannot be choosers. I'm not sure where I heard that from, but I heard that from somewhere along the road of life. And if you're given half a loaf, right, you're like, well, I would rather have a full loaf of bread. But half a loaf is better than none. So if this is the only option, you size it up and you possibly. Now, turning the page. So many insiders, I say that, insiders, many insiders say that Bill Belichick has no plans of return to the NFL, that he's committed to North Carolina, and he ain't going to walk away. He's not going to do them dirty. Is that how you see it? Well, I snicker when I see that type of, I don't know if it's journalism, that type of reporting. I would say absolutely not, right? That's absolutely not how I see it. And there's the public-private dichotomy. There's the public position, which is, hey, I have no plans of leaving North Carolina. There's the private, which is something totally different. If you offer me the right job, I'm out of here, right? I am out of here. And the great thing about Belichick is if he does leave North Carolina before coaching a game, and he's asked about that, he can merely not answer the question and say, I'm on to whatever job, or we're not addressing that, blah, 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 blah. And the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Some poet wrote that back in the day. And it is true, right? Plans change all the time. Plans change a lot. This week's a great example, right? I am a poet, and I don't even know it. But here's the thing, right? Like plans change. Like this week, we're kind of scramble mode here. We do the show from L.A. There's fires all over the place. It's like a hurricane of fire, and you have to kind of adjust, right? You have to roll with everything. But Belichick, he wanted the NFL. He just didn't think he was going to get the NFL, and he had no patience. Right? Eager beaver, and he put out some feelers. The fish weren't biting, blah, 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 blah. So Belichick ran out of the patience, and this guy from North Carolina approached him. Hey, how would you like to coach the Tar Heels? And he's like, all right, fine. And I can set my son up. And we had mentioned the possibility of Belichick leaving before he coaches a game, and so it's not shocking that this is in play here. In fact, it's very predictable that Belichick's name would come up in the coaching carousel. And plus, coaches in general, they will give you a version of the truth. They're just not going to give you the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? That's not going to happen. Belichick has a history of dining and ditching, if you will, the football version of taking a job and then leaving before actually completing the job or sometimes even starting the job. So is this a get out the napkin holder situation? Ergo, if you're old enough to remember, I guess you got to be pretty old now. Maybe you read it on Wikipedia. But 25 years ago, can't believe it's been that long, but it's been 25 years. Bill Belichick, he was introduced as the new head coach of the Jets. You remember this? If you're old, you remember this? Yeah, it was the introductory news conference. Belichick, his news conference there. And then he turned that introductory news conference into a resignation announcement. And he wrote on a napkin, not a formal, back in those days, they didn't use a lot of the digital stuff. Email was around, but it wasn't quite the same, and the text messaging wasn't really all that popular at that point. So Belichick used a napkin, and he wrote down some chicken scratch. I resign as HC of the NYJ, period. And that was his resignation letter. So if you can do it once, you can certainly do it again. We all know that no matter how many wins Belichick gets or doesn't get at North Carolina, he can go there and be top-notch and wonderful or veer off the course. But either way, whatever wins he were to get in Chapel Hill, Belichick, they're not going to count towards his overall goal. Belichick is 15 wins away. 15 wins away from passing Don Shula as the NFL's all-time winningest coach. Now, I know that upsets our friend Stevie Meatballs in Florida and others who are a bundle of nerves when they hear that, but that's the reality. Now, last word here. So, taking a couple of steps back, take 3 steps back, we look out across the Serengeti. What are the odds that Bill Belichick actually does it? What are the odds that Belichick skips out on the Tar Heels and does end up with one of these NFL jobs that are available? So I'm going to set the odds on this at plus 2,000. Bada bing, bada boom. Plus 2,000 on Belichick never coaching a game for North Carolina. Now, that implies a 5% chance, which is very low. Why not higher? All right. The reason it is not higher is because Bill Belichick is like a jar of pickles. He's an acquired taste, right? A lot of people don't like the pickles. They don't like the texture. They don't like the smell. They don't like anything about pickles at all, right? And I used to work with the guy, the great Eddie Garcia, hated pickles. I'm not a big pickle fan. I'm not. Don't like the pickles. Not for everybody. Now, the biggest issue here, right? Belichick, in the NFL as a whole, their eyes, Belichick is an old fogey. He's in his 70s. He's set in his ways. There's a generation gap. There's even a generation gap with his lady friend, right? Most of the people who are hiring are the younger hipster crowd in the NFL. And they want the latest fashion, right? They want to crack the code. They don't want a classic. They want what's next. In order for this to work, and I'm giving it a 5% chance, Bill would have to circumvent the wokesters and the nerds and all those people. He would have to go directly to the owner. So it would have to be one of these owners that hangs out at the cocktail parties in the Hamptons or South Beach or Beverly Hills And Belichick, who knows a lot of these people, and this guy knows the whole enchilada in the NFL, right? He's been around a while. And so he can go directly to the owner. Although he had that with Arthur Blank last year, and Arthur Blank hired Raheem Morris as his coach in Atlanta. How'd that work out? Not good. Missed the playoffs. Bad job by him. So there's a workaround. The analytical dorks are not going to hire him. Financially, there are no real roadblocks. Financially, right? There's none. Belichick has a $10 million buyout before June 1st. Here we sit in second week in January, and Bill Belichick has a $10 million buyout. Now, to you and I, if I said you got to come up with $10 million by June 1st, you'd say, holy crap, I can't do it. I'm done. And I'd say the same thing. However, if you're an NFL team, every time they sneeze, they say, achoo. And every time they say, achoo, they make about $3 million. So a couple of sneezes, and they're golden, right? They're golden. And Belichick, he only took the North Carolina job because he was impatient. And the NFL teams they're showing interest. Now, how thick that is, I don't know. Ultimately, likely will not lead to anything. But it's fun to think about the possibility of Belichick coming back to the NFL. And, heck, even the Patriots, they've got their eyes locked in on Mike Vrabel, supposedly, after the humdrum experience of Gerard Mayo.